Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with another lesson where I'm going to read through Daniel chapter 2 and how it reaffirms the sequence of the end times. And so, I've done a live stream recently on the book of Daniel just to talk about how none of the stuff in Daniel refers to one Antichrist popping up and all that. And so I was listening to Obadiah's judgment, and he pointed out that Daniel 2 does reference the end times, and that's, a good catch. And so, I read it, and then not a shocker again that any reference to the end times is going to support the sequence that I was told on the first day of this year. And so, not a big shocker that it's here again. And so, because he reminded me or pointed me to that, I'll read the whole thing and, show that it's the same sequence. And so, again, I don't need these at this point, because if the Bible's true, that's the way it's going to manifest, and so if the Bible's true, and then whatever group is in the end times, that this is the way it's going to go. And we're told that here. And then, if you subscribe to my backup channel, I've put all of those in a, one location. And so you can see them all. And so again, anything that refers to the end times anywhere in the Bible, or anything that's true fundamentally, it's going to have the same sequence. It's just what it is. And so, don't shoot the messenger. That's just what it is. And so, I was told that, and then it's obvious that that's the case everywhere in the Bible. And so, it gives me comfort that that's exactly the way it's going to be, if the God of the Bible speaks, and does the things that he's prophesied that he will do. And so this is an amazing thing. And I believe that we're living in those days, and it's an incredible time, even though it's scary for a lot of people. So Daniel chapter 2, the title is Nebuchadnezzar's Dream. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Just know all these enchanters, magicians, sorcerers, Chaldeans, they're here now, And so it's the same thing. And then they're only going to be able to react in the same way, to what's going on. And so just know that. And so this, like everything else in the Bible, supports reincarnation. And we'll go into that here. And so just know that these people that were there around Nebuchadnezzar are here now. And so is Nebuchadnezzar. And so just know that his spirit that was troubled is here. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. So these are not actual spiritual people, because the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. You should be able to say what's going to happen if God has, quote unquote, touched you with some information. And so they need the dream first in order to be able to say what it is. And so he calls them out on this, and this is an amazing thing. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. This is what happens to false prophets. I don't want to be one of them. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation. They answered a second time and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show its interpretation. They don't know what's going on. It's obvious. All they can do is just ask, and then they're going to make up something, like we see with literally everybody reading out of the Bible now. The king answered and said, I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time, because you see the word from me is firm. If you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one sentence for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the times change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. So they shouldn't even have to interpret it. Like, if they just tell them the dream, that's enough, that they're that God told them that. And so he knows that they're not going to be able to, and he's calling them out. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand, for no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Gods is lower G. It turns out the elect can, and so just know that. And we're going to find that out here. Verse 12, because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then Daniel replied with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He declared to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree of the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint him a time that he may show the interpretation to the king. So amongst all of these sorcerers and Chaldeans, there's always going to be God's elect, and that's who Daniel is a part of course. Daniel is here somewhere on this earth right now, if we're living in the last days. Verse 17, then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, so Daniel's going to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which I'm assuming those are also part of God's elect. And so just know that. And then they, guess what, communicate with God directly, and God tells them things. And so they don't go to Har or Pastor Anderson or Ken Hovind, any of these retards, which are all spitting ball earthers and all these dummies who are just part of these enchanters and sorcerers. They go to God. And so just know that that's how God's elect operates. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. It's to God who belongs all this wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. God is behind Donald Trump and all these other actors. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. That's for his elect. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of the fathers, I give thanks and praise. For you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. And so this is a prayer, but it's reflective of God interacting with his elect. So first thing, reference to God's elect, check. That's always the first thing that happens, when the end times are referenced. And so right on cue. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste and said thus to him, I have found among the exiles from Judah, this is an actual Israelite. Daniel's a real Israelite because he actually knows things and interacts with God, not man. I have found among the exiles from Judah a man who will make known to the king the interpretation. The king declared to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered the king and said, no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show the king the mystery that the king had asked, but there is God in heaven who reveals mysteries. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head as you lay in bed are these. To you, O king, as you lay in bed came thoughts of what would be after this, and he reveals mysteries made known to you what is to be. But as for me, this mystery has been revealed to me not because of any wisdom that I, more than all the living, but in order that all the interpretations may be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind. And so just know that Daniel's humble. Everybody on God's right-hand side, especially the 144,000, and obviously the two witnesses, they're extremely humble. They don't think anything of themselves. This is why he says this. This is not anything that's special about him. It's simply to fulfill God's purpose, and to reveal this dream and then explain to us now, reading this, what's going to happen and then the days that we're living in now. And so that language is completely consistent with God's right-hand side. And you don't see that anywhere, on earth. And so just know that we know the way the truth sounds, and the way righteous people sound. And it does not sound like anybody on this earth, because this earth is filled with stupid people and actors and like all these sorcerers and all that kind of stuff. So just know that that to me, you don't even have to say anything else. We know who we're dealing with at this point. You tell me he's an Israelite, and then you say that he has this thought that comes to his mind and says this, what he's about to say is going to be true. Absolutely, without a doubt, because that's the kind of people that God operates through. Verse 31, you saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. These are symbols of empires and then leadership structures that are groups of spirits. And so just know that. And then the leadership structures that are on this earth are being recycled, and just know that there's nothing new under the sun. And so the leadership structures in the past are now leaders now. And so just know that. And then Daniel is being shown here that those leadership structures are going to be destroyed at some point permanently. Then the iron, the clay, and the bronze, and the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor. and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them can be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And that's Christ. The stone that has been rejected, is now the cornerstone. And so that's Christ. And so he is then going to be the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And the very important thing here is that said here, that so that not a trace of them could be found. Christ says, the Bible says that anybody who's destroyed in hell, body and soul are destroyed. And so that's, again, reaffirmed here. Big shocker. Bible's consistent. And so God's entire left-hand side is going to be destroyed and never be found again. And so just know that. And so all these retards who use the Bible to then go talk about how all these souls are going to be back and then they're going to be slaves and all that. Well, how do you explain that here and everywhere in the Bible? And so they're not allowed to teach Matthew 10:28 and lots of other verses that talk about God's left-hand side being completely destroyed permanently forever. And so just know that it's an eternal destruction, which means that it's outside of time and it's permanent. Just know that. Body and soul. Verse 36, this was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom. God gives power to people. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. By who? By God. Just know that. The power, the might, and the glory, and into whose hand he has given wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of heavens, making you rule over them. You are the head of gold. Another kingdom inferior to you shall arise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. And as you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage. So this is going to be an intermingled nation. This is America. But they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And so every prophecy of the end times that refers to a superpower is America. If the Bible is true and we're living in the last days, it has to be. And so that language is, again, completely consistent with Revelation 17. And I refer people to that video that I just did recently, where it talks about a nation that is of a multitude of people, and then they're on every waters. And so I literally just saw a video this morning of like all the military presence of America in like all the seas worldwide, all the waters. And so it's obviously America. And so just know that. And so this is what they're prophesying. And so this is an incredible thing. And so now this is the first layer of the prophecy, is that this kingdom is going to be set up, and be powerful and all that, like it's being said here, but it's going to be divided, partly strong and partly brittle. And so we see that the division everywhere, here in America. Like every topic, there's division, literally. And so just know that that's God's doing. And so now we're told here, and again, this is in verse 44, which is not a shocker. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall a kingdom be left to another people. As for God's elect, the 144, it shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. And so that's referring to God's elect returning with Christ, and destroying all these structures. And so just know that. And so first and foremost, we're talking about America, being weak, and all that kind of stuff. And then it talks about how Christ will return with his 144 and then destroy all these power structures. And so just know that. And so that is completely consistent with the sequence of the end times, that I was told on the first day of this year. And so verse 44, which is referencing the elect, is talking about breaking in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. And so just know that. And so just as you saw that a stone was cut out from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. So all these, again, power structures, Nebuchadnezzar and all these idiots are here now, leading different nations and part of all these power structures. And then we're told here that all of them are going to be killed. So God's entire left-hand side is going to be destroyed by Christ returning with his elect. And so just know that. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation sure. And so this is indeed referring to the end times. And so that was a good catch that, Obadiah called out. I guess he's not subbed or listening to my videos or whatever. Why would somebody who's the chosen and knows all these things, why would they come here and listen to an Elamite or some, heathen or whatever, all these things that he calls me, or somebody he calls a homosexual? Why would he come here and listen to what I have to say? What's up with that? Why are you doing that? And all that kind of stuff. And so, he did point out correctly that Daniel 2 does indeed refer to the end times. And so I think I skimmed over it, saying that it doesn't refer to the end times. Maybe I said that, and I think that I was just seeing this and then thinking it was just talking about the major empires, and that kind of thing. But I failed to realize that it does indeed refer to the last days, and then Christ setting up his kingdom, which is eternal. And so that's a good find. But nowhere in here talks about one Antichrist popping up, which was kind of the point of that live stream, was to go through the entire the book of Daniel, and say none of these chapters talk about one Antichrist popping up and wowing the world, and definitely not here, that's for sure. This is consistent with every other book that goes through the sequence of the end times, and just that's what it is. The elect, there's a period of like wrath, or plagues, America destroyed, and then the rest of the nations destroyed. And that's exactly what we see here. Big shocker, right? Not to me, but that's what it is. And so, just know that. And so when it's talking about, this last sort of empire, that is described here, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together. It's talking about, a nation divided, and then being destroyed and spoiled. And that's America. And so a reference to America being destroyed will always come before all the other nations being destroyed, which is written of in later, in 44 and 45, at the end of it. And so just know that that's always the case. And so that's the sequence of the end times. It'll never be violated. And to me, this is an amazing thing. And you have to know a little bit of numerology here. I would say it's a bit subtle in verse 44, because that's in that position on purpose, because that's God's elect, and in those days of those kings is talking about all of them. So this again supports reincarnation, that all those kings have to be here in the end times for this verse to come true, and the entire Bible to come true. All eyes will see him, even those who pierced him. And so that again supports reincarnation. And so just know that. Daniel is also told that he's going to take his place in the end times. So that supports reincarnation in the book of Daniel. And so it's for God's left and right hand side. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. It's plural, all the kings. Nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It's for God's elect, and so just know that they are the government, quote unquote government, for the kingdom of heaven, with Christ ruling. And, that's an amazing thing. And we're anxious for those days. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms, and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. And so that's referring to the kingdom of heaven. And so that's an amazing thing. Daniel is promoted, verse 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and paid homage to Daniel, and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. The king answered and said to Daniel, truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries. And so End Times Teacher thinks that since every king is born, he uses some verse, I think in the Apocrypha, to prove that Christ was born of man and woman, because every king comes into the world. He's a Lord of kings. Is that the same as a king, you retard? And so these stupid people, man, they blaspheme the Holy Spirit. Then they have the gall to come anywhere and then ask us to kiss the ring of a bunch of retards. So how do you explain that? Truly your God is God of gods. And gods is in small g. And so that's God's elect. So he's the God of all those, people, and Lord of all the kings, all these actors, and a revealer of mysteries. And for you have been able to reveal this mystery. That's God's elect. And so what are the mysteries that these people are revealing? All these people, tell me what happens first and all that kind of stuff. We know exactly what's going to happen. We know that the two witnesses are two men, Moses and Elijah. They're going to be prophesying in the streets of America for 1,260 days. And so how come you guys don't know that? That kind of thing. What's up with that? And so we know that you're not the two witnesses. You guys are stupid. Verse 48, then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. Daniel made a request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel remained at the king's court. Daniel is not impressed by this person. He knows he's an actor. He's just playing along, and all that. None of us, definitely in these times, regard anybody on earth unless they're speaking truth out of the Bible, which is nobody. And so we don't care at all. We don't regard anybody on this earth as interesting or smart or, oh, wow, you have so much power. Who cares? We're told here that all those structures are going to be destroyed permanently. So what are we going to do? Go and be impressed by those retards who are going to be destroyed permanently, or be impressed by the one who's going to destroy all those people and then have rulership over the entire earth and set up his government? With Daniel will be one of them. Absolutely. One of the 144,000, without a doubt. And so we want humble people like Daniel in charge. First of all, he's humble, like I read earlier, and then he knows things because he interacts with God directly, not Wikipedia, not Tahar, not Ken Hovind, all these other Masons and all these dummies. And so, we're anxious for these days to be fulfilled. And so Daniel chapter 2 again reaffirms the sequence of the end times. It's always God's elect being referenced. It's always America being destroyed. Then it's always the other nations, the rest of the power structures being destroyed by Christ and the elect. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.